Hey everybody,
Hi.
this is this is Matt from Yoga Farm Ithaca, and with this edition of Yoga Farm Graduate Spotlight, I'm here with Ariana.
Hi, friends.
Ariana, why don't you tell us which program or programs you've done with Yoga Farm, and talk to me about what we're going to spotlight with you today.
I started with Yoga Farm during the pandemic way back in
Oh,
2020.
wow.
And I have gone through just about every program Yoga Farm has offered. I did my 200 hour, my 300 hour spiritual warrior. I've gone through Kundalini rebirthing. I'm in Lynn's current class right now.
Right on.
Um, so many things and a lot of offshoot classes with a lot of other teachers. So I've done inner alignment training with Kim Beekman. Um, I just so many things, um, which is kind of how it brought me back to astrology. So
Mm.
today we're highlighting astrology, and I get to read Matt's chart.
Oh, this is so exciting. This is one of those things that I've kind of heard about piecemeal throughout my life, and especially since I met Jeannie, I've been
Yeah,
learning more about it. And so it's like peeling back all the layers, understanding all the layers to it, because it's not just, of course, the first question I think she asked me was, when is your birthday? When were you born? And what time? And I got that information. But there's a lot more to it, which I am slowly learning about.
yeah,
So I'm very excited to hear about this read. Now, this is a chart reading.
yeah. So we're gonna do a
Okay.
chart reading, and I I have been in and out kind of the same way with you, where like I've heard things about astrology for a really long time. Same thing with yoga. I mean, I live in LA,
Mhm.
so it's just things we talk about all the time. Um, and and what kind of brought it back where I really started deep diving into it was going through my journey with Yoga Farm and all of the different modalities of things that we talk about. So Ayurveda,
Mm,
enneagrams, human design, all of those things. All I started to notice a theme, overarching theme across all of these, where elemental energy just kind of follows suit. And so I started to piece together how astrology kind of played this role through all of those different modalities. Um, and so that's where I really jumped into it, and also where I teach from with
mm,
astrology is more of an elemental base. So how do we look at your chart and see where we can find the most balance for your life? Um,
mm,
I look at astrology as a blueprint for life, but not necessarily a mandate. So
mm.
it gives you more of what your default attributes are. And then you can kind of see where there's some blind spots, where there's some places um, for improvement or growth, and how to look at these spaces and see where we might be lacking, where it might provide a little bit of insight, um, and how to kind of move from there. Um, Also, just as a side note, I'm in the middle of a road trip, looking at looking at retreat centers, which is why I'm in this crazy hotel room in the middle of Colorado. So my Wi-Fi might be just a little tiny glitchy.
Wow, that's yeah. I've noticed. I've seen your Instagram reels and stories, and it looks like holy cow, an adventure. Um,
It's
I've been loving the astrology, not deep dive because I haven't really read a lot about it, but I feel like that with Ayurveda and Enneagram, like you mentioned, it's just like another lens to view yourself.
yeah,
And a lot of times people say things about it, and my opinion is it too much of it tracks to it for it to not be meaningful. Like there's so much of it that makes sense where like, okay, I should pay attention a little bit because it's speaking a lot of truth right now. Especially when I see Jeannie look at my chart or someone's and they see, okay, you were born on this day, this time. Oh, okay. Oh, you got that too. Yeah. So there's a lot of those reactions, and then slowly learning what those gaps mean. So
Right.
it's been very, very,
Yeah.
very cool. So I love peeling back the layer. This is like I like how you said like a blueprint. This is like you know what? Actually, it just came to me. This is like I view it like a Dungeons and Dragons character. Like I got my character sheet and my stats. I'm like, okay, here are my stats. Here's what I'm starting off with. That doesn't mean I'm always going to be or have to be a certain way or
Yes.
anything. It's just areas to have awareness about. So I'm very excited to hear this.
Yeah, the thing with astrology is it has now been looked as a pseudoscience, but when it originally started, it was a legitimate science
Mm,
base that was based off of observation.
right.
And people were pretty smart when we didn't have our phones to be able to look at the world and see and notice, okay, when the sun sets this way, the birds are going to go this way. And this is
Hmm.
the time when I need to, it really was agriculturally based
Right.
of, when do we need to plant the crops? When do we need to harvest the crops? And it was all based around, okay, notice that the sun is doing this, the moon is doing
Hmm.
this, these stars are doing this. And then they started to also notice behaviors within people. And so
Mm,
people, around this time, they started behaving this way, these certain characteristics. And it is all just an observational science. And so when you start to look at that lens for yourself, it's when it starts to become fun because then you can start to see the patterns and where the gasps of like, oh, okay, this all
yeah.
starts to make sense. Now what do I
Yeah.
do with it?
Right.
So what we're going to look at is we're going to look at your what we call your big three, which is
Okay. Now,
your
can I guess what they are?
go ahead and guess.
Your sun
Yes.
sign,
Yep.
your moon sign,
Correct.
rising.
And you're rising.
Nice.
You got
All
it.
right. All right.
So your rising in your chart will also, it usually is categorized as an ascendant.
Okay.
And what that means is it is the constant, and it's why we need your exact birth time. So it's the constellation that was on the horizon the moment you were born.
Okay.
And that changes every 2 hours. So that's why a lot of people can,
Mm,
oh, we have the same birthday, we're birthday twins. But
right.
and even with actual twins, sometimes
Mm,
when they're born within a certain amount of time, they can be very different,
they can be different, right?
because their risings are different.
Oh, that's
Uh,
interesting.
Because that 2 hour time stretch it really
I've
makes a big difference.
I've never really asked or thought about the significance of the time. I knew it was significance, but now that you say it that way, and to think about twins, that's fascinating. How like even on the same day, there's fluctuations or differences depending on the time.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And so here's the thing about rising signs is what most people don't know is that modern astrology, like when you read your horoscope, is actually based on your rising sign. So for
Mm.
a lot of people, when they have read their horoscopes, if they've read their astrology, and they're like, this doesn't make any sense to me at all. Because they're reading it from their sun sign. So I'm an Aquarius sun, but I'm an Aries rising. And those are very different people. Those are very different people. Now, for you, so you are a Virgo sun,
Hmm.
you're a Virgo rising,
Yeah.
and you are a Libra moon.
Hmm.
So the beauty of this is that you're both Virgo sun and Virgo rising. So, like, what you see is what you get. You don't
Yeah.
really have to hunt around for a lot of information because it's all going to run very congruent. Um, you overall have a lot of Virgo, my friend.
I know. I was looking at my chart one time, not that reason, not too far, like long ago, and I was actually paying attention, and I looked at all the things in Virgo. I even said to Jeannie at the time, I was like, "Oh my God, I have so many things in Virgo. Has this always been like this?" And she's like, it's called your birth chart."
It's
So
your birth. Yeah,
yes,
it
that's
has. It
exactly.
has
So
always been
oh
this way. Yeah. So
yeah.
you have a lot of Virgo. So you're Virgo sun, you're a Virgo moon. You have a Virgo Venus, which for most people, their Venus and their sun sign will be the same. Sometimes there's some fluctuation, but generally those two are very close together. and your Venus sign is your love sign. You have Virgo in Saturn. You have Virgo in your North Node.
Mm.
And your North Node is kind of your life's journey. So
Oh,
when people look at their horoscopes and they really want, like, what am I doing with my life? The North Node is one of the spaces that you really want to look at, because
oh,
it's kind of where your karmic destiny lies. Um,
I'm writing that down is all.
yeah. That's a good one to deep dive into. So let's talk about, and I will add you to, I have a whole like breakdown of your chart that I did last night. And I'll
Oh,
send this over to you later.
oh, thank you. I literally can't wait to see this.
So some of the key themes that I noticed within your chart. So besides the fact that you have all of this Virgo energy, most of your placements, all of your placements really, on your chart are left side dominant. So what that means is when you pull up your wheel, when you do your little
Hmm.
chart and it gives you the wheel, all of your placements are on the left side. Really, they cluster up into this area called the 12th house.
Oh,
So, and actually, you know what? We have time. I want to share my screen with you
sure.
and we'll pull up your wheel.
I love seeing reactions to my birth chart, my wheel, because people
Your
are
wheel.
just like, "Whoa, look at that!" Lots of Virgo. Not even lots of Virgo, but just
There's
like,
quite a
wow,
bit.
it's all over. It's like it would be, if it was a cartoon, it would just be tilting this way. It's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot on the left side.
Oh, wait. I don't think it's going to let me share. Oh, wait. Am I pushing the wrong button? Haha. Here we go.
Oh, there we go.
Can you see?
Hmm.
Okay, great.
Whoa, it's all over there. Holy cow.
It's all over there.
Ah! Oh man.
So what this means is, so we'll do a quick breakdown of what the wheel is.
Hmm.
Because most of the time when people pull up their charts, they get like a linear, like word breakdown, and then they see this
Right,
wheel and they don't really understand what it means.
right. I am one of those people. So this is
So
great.
if we imagine that the center of this little circle is the earth,
Hmm.
because it's
Uh-huh.
round, people, it's round. um, and we take this little circle and we break it up into 12 pie shapes. So just like there's 12 months out of the year, there's 12 houses within the astrological calendar. And it starts at one, which is the ascendant. So we know
Hmm.
that the ascendant is the horizon line of the earth.
Oh, okay.
Right. So we have Eastern Hemisphere on this side, Western Hemisphere on this side. Northern Hemisphere is up everything above us. So that's where the sun was
Hmm.
shining the day you were born. And then
Hmm.
everything below is the Southern Hemisphere where it was dark. So now what we tend to notice is you have a very large cluster of like everything.
Hmm.
This 12th house. So a couple of things to talk about really quick before I stop sharing and we'll go back to your breakdown.
Hmm.
Um, each piece of this pie, each house, deals with particular attributes. Um, so home, finance, health, all of those things. This first house here is the beginning of, it's the first part of the calendar. So it falls into Aries season. And it's basically birth, new beginnings, and deals with a lot of self. So for myself, like I'll use myself as an example, I'm an Aries rising. So
Mm.
my chart runs congruently with the calendar. Mine's actually a very easy read because I start at the beginning. My ascendant starts at number one, so it's pretty easy to read. First house attributes, and I'm bringing this up because you have some first house attributes, so we'll talk about this. Um, is new beginnings. It's like uh, early childhood vibes. So there's a lot of
Mm,
youthful energy here. There's a lot of, it's a fire sign. So there's a lot of that kind of, there's a lot of pitta energy in the beginning. As we move through the wheel and we end up in the 12th house, this is the space of endings.
mm.
This is the space of, there's a lot of karma to be dealt with in, in the 12th house. It This house talks a lot. It's where Pisces lives.
Mm,
And so the energy here is very dreamlike. There's a lot of water. It deals a lot with, what's the word I'm looking for? It deals a lot with structures around spirituality, but
mm.
in a religious sense.
Oh.
Scorpio deals with a lot of spirituality in like the underworld, witchy world,
Mm.
which, no surprise, is your wife. The funny thing also is you really have no water in
Mm.
your chart other than, I was joking around about this yesterday with Jeannie. You have Scorpio in
Mhm.
Uranus. That is the
Mm.
only it's the only space that you have Scorpio. Um,
Mm.
which there's a lot of jokes we could go with Jeannie about.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm sure.
yeah, but it's really fascinating that most of your major signs fall into this very watery, dreamy world. Um, that does have some, I mean, when you think about religion in general, there's a lot of
Mm.
structure to that. So
Mhm.
it makes sense that the Virgo placements kind of play off of all of this. People think
Oh,
that
yeah.
Virgo is very strict and rigid, which it can be. Um, but it is a mutable sign, which allows for flexibility because Virgos know that in order for things to be perfect, you have to like try all the different ways to get there. So,
Right. It's like the idea of like total freedom through structure in a way, or like control. It's like if I know all the things that need to be and where they go, I am then given the freedom to break a rule if I feel like it, kind of thing. Where
right,
like I love the structure because it gives me the boundaries and then I know where they are and I could go around them if I need to, kind of thing.
right, completely. Um, the thing with the 12th house also is that it also it butts up with the first house that they both deal with self.
Mm.
So the 12th house is very self-reflexive. It's very inward, like the inward journey. Like I'm close to the end of this karmic cycle. I'm close to the end of this life. I'm close to the end of whatever this journey looks like. And so there's a lot of self introspection there. Um, and so I'm going to stop share really quick and then we'll chat. Um, so a lot of your chart talks a lot about self introspection
Mm.
and how that plays out through your life journey. Um, so let me just look at my notes really quick. So some of the key themes that we have. So we just talked about your left side. You're a very self-directed person with a strong internal compass. Like you really know where you're going, where you need to be going. Um, the 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 play in all of this is how do you do that and keep true to yourself while some of the blueprint structure might be to keep the peace with everything that's going
Mm,
around you.
yeah. Yeah.
So, so what that looks like in your chart um, is this is where your moon in Libra comes into play. So Libra is an air sign. So it takes some of the levity off of all of that earth grounding energy. Um, and the planet associated with Libra is Venus. So there's a lot of feminine energy that comes into play here. The moon in general is the the matriarchal sign. It
Mhm.
is where our feminine energy comes from. So having your moon in Libra really grounds out a lot of this very rooted earthy energy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Libra is a cardinal sign. So usually cardinal signs. So we talked about how Virgo was a mutable sign, which means there's a little flexibility. Libra is a cardinal sign, which means it comes at the beginning of a season. So this usually, Libra marks the beginning of fall. And most cardinal signs have this energy of um, newness, like beginning of thoughts, ideas, ways of being. So there's a lot of that like air, like fun energy behind it.
Mhm.
Um, Moon in Libra. So going back to first house. So your moon in Libra sits in your first house. So
Mm,
it's kind of this weird play of like Pitta Vata energy because
mm.
it's still in the
Oh.
first house. So there's a little fire behind it, um, which means that your emotional space can feel very heightened, even though the rest of your planets and signs, because they're in the 12th house, try to really like keep it under wraps.
Oh my God. Like you will see this face.
Right.
It doesn't, yeah. But like, and then the feelings, the emotions, and usually I'm like, if I'm thinking about something emotional, feeling something emotional, it, and not really intentionally, it doesn't come out in any sort of vibrant, expressive way.
Yeah.
I'm just really internalizing and thinking of it. And I just kind of like sit here. But yeah, I mean, I sit there and like, what are you doing? You're just sitting there. Like inside, it's like that's where all the energy, that's where the movement is, right? And it's like that has
Yeah.
always been the case where it's like it looks like I'm either dissociating or I'm just kind of
Right.
zoning out, and that's where the earth kind of presents itself. But like the emotions and the internal, that's where the vata, that's like all that kicks in. Yeah.
Yes. It's funny you said the disassociate. So that part comes into play. So I'm going to jump a little bit because this was one that I had picked up on. So your Mars is in Cancer in your
Mm,
11th house. So what does this mean? This this kind of piggybacks off of your moon and that same energy. So while you have all of these really like grounded, heavy, like Virgo, your Chiron is in Taurus, like there's just so much earth. You have these couple of placements, which is where I go with like the inner alignment and the Enneagram and all of those things that where astrology is so amazing to me, how it will place these certain little things that kind of balance it all out in some way.
mhm,
So Mars and Cancer. So Mars is associated with it's the planet of war. It's pure fire. It's Pitta. It's how people process anger,
mm,
and it's also where we take initiative in life. Like you need fire to alchemize movement.
mm.
And so your Mars sits in the house of Cancer, or not in the house, in the sign of Cancer. Cancer is associated with the moon. So those two pair together.
Oh,
The
okay.
moon sits in Cancer and your moon sits
Mm.
in Libra. So you have all of this like intense feminine emotional energy. The thing with
Oh.
Cancer, though, is so the the avatar of Cancer is the crab.
Mhm.
And a crab can do one of two things. It can either pinch you
Mm,
or it will hide in its shell. And so it seems, based on your blueprint, that
mm.
the disassociation and the hiding in the shell
Right?
is is the default.
Yeah.
Most Mars and Cancer people, they're not going to like, most of the time people think of Mars placements as explosions of anger, explosions
Mm,
of emotions, things like that. But Mars in Cancer, there's so much water around Cancer that it kind of drowns out that fire.
mm.
And it can it can come off as a little more passive aggressive. Uh,
Oh man, does it? Yeah. It's such an easy,
yeah,
like, that's like part of my self-reflection and inner work is like, how can I not slide into passive aggressive
yes,
tendencies easily? And like that's no totally like
because that's
I
the default.
that's yeah, totally default. It's where I go initially, and it's like, you know, learning to respond and not react to anything that happens in my day, and that's one of them. It's like, well, why don't we pause with any passive aggressive comment, behavior?
Yeah.
But yes, it's 100%. It's there.
It will become more prevalent or noticeable going back now to your moon in Libra. So the thing with Libra is that it's the scales of justice. And so there's a perceived viewpoint of what is fair. And so
Ugh.
if
I feel like I'm getting called out hard right now today. Wasn't expecting this level of truth at 2:30 on a Saturday, but it's fine. It's fine.
it's good. It's okay. It's all good. So the trigger point for you would be if things are not fair or what you
Mm,
perceive to be fair. And the default is that passive aggressive nature because of Mars and Cancer. The funny thing about Mars is like that term that is so popular right now of F around and find out
yeah.
is very Mars and Cancer. Like there's almost like a glee
Oh, did you find out? Oh
in the
my
find out
God.
part.
It's just
Like I
so delicious.
like I don't have to say anything. I'm not going to yell at you, but there will be a smirk on my face when the find around part comes into play.
Right. The younger me would have been like, ah, I told you. But in
Yeah,
my 45th year, I'm just like, I'm just going to sit back and just,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
enjoy it.
That
Mm,
yeah, that's very Mars and Cancer. Now, your Mars and Cancer falls into the 11th house, which is um the attributes of the 11th house are very Aquarius energy. That's
mm,
where I live.
mm,
I'm an Aquarius sun. And so usually the overarching themes of that are community,
mm,
dealing with community, and social justice work falls into this place. Um, and and it's kind of a funny thing because there's a disconnect that happens where the view of the greater good becomes the priority. And so
mm,
what are tough decisions that we have to make for the greater good? Um, this theme comes into play with a lot of your Virgo alignments, um, because Virgos really are the best at reading the room. They're known for being picky, but they're being picky because they see the things that most people don't see. And so the hard part of the journey is that usually it's very internalized.
mm,
Um, and in this space where your Mars and Cancer is, and it's looking at how do you deal with this on the outer realm? How do you deal with this with the collective? How are you working with this emotional, um, this really deep emotional undercarriage that you have, um, that's kind of like bubbling below the surface?
mhm,
And how do you communicate this effectively for the good of everybody else, for the
mm,
collective, without losing yourself in it.
Mm.
Um, all right, let's see what else. Um, okay, this will be a fun one. So every sign, every sign has a planet that is associated with it. And so you can kind of look at where all of your placements are
Mm.
and come up with what's called your chart ruler. So because you have so many Virgo placements, yours is easy to find. Mercury, Mercury,
Mercury, yeah, I was thinking that and was going to ask if I could guess. I thought it
yes.
would be Mercury. I don't know how or why, but yeah.
So Mercury is the planet that is associated with Virgo. And everybody knows Mercury in retrograde,
Mm.
creates chaos and all that.
People hate it. That's the only thing I know. That's one of the first things I remember. It's like Mercury's in retrograde.
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
Mercury's
what
in
does that
Haven.
mean? And like everything sucks for 6 weeks or whatever. It's just going to
Yeah.
be hard and terrible or something. But
Mercury's
that's
in
not true.
haterade is what I say. Um, so Mercury is associated with communication. And it's funny.
Okay. So, well, like, sorry, I didn't not to interrupt, but isn't
No, go ahead.
Mercury like the messenger? Like, isn't that supposed to be
Correct.
Hermes and like the messenger, right? He would fly
Yes.
the shoes, with the wings on it, and would fly around and
Wing.
tell everything. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So so it revolves around communication, and it's why when Mercury goes retrograde,
Oh,
if
that's
you think
okay.
of communication, not just verbal communication, but we communicate through cell phones, we communicate
Yeah.
through contracts, we communicate through computers. So those are all the things that people associate with as Mercury retrograde is, causing havoc on everybody and cursing everybody.
Hmm.
Um, when really it's a beautiful time to be self-reflexive about what we say and what we do. And maybe, just maybe, we all shouldn't talk so much. Um, but that's just my personal opinion. Um,
Hey,
and
you're talking to a Virgo. I'm also an Enneagram 1. You don't need to convince me to talk less. That's never been the direction any teacher, parent, figure has been pointing me. It's never like, hey,
you
you got to
never had
pipe
that
down.
conversation at school.
No, it's always it was always like I'm going to call on you because who hasn't said anything this semester?
Yeah,
Mr. O'Neill, how about you?
Mr.
I'm like, oh,
O'Neill.
damn it. Yeah, that's where I always land.
Um, so Mercury is the planet that rules your chart, which is funny because for most of everything, and especially that 12th house cluster that is so internalized, all signs point to you needing to communicate
Mm.
and utilizing that communication, um, you know, in the community that you're in. One of the things that this also points to, which is super interesting. So, again, the blueprint will place particular things to balance things out. So when we look at, your whole chart, we know that your ascendant is the beginning point on the Eastern Hemisphere.
Mm.
And when you look straight up from that point, is what we call the MC, or it's the midhaven. It's where the
Mm.
sun was directly above when you were born. And that sign is in Gemini for you. Now,
Okay.
Gemini,
Wait, so the midhaven is where the sun was in relation to like sorry, can you repeat what midhaven is?
so the midhaven is the point that is directly above you
Okay.
from the moment you were born.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And your midhaven, people like to the shortened version, people like to say it's your career path. It's where,
Oh.
like, it's your happy place. But I like to expand upon that. It's really nice if your career lands in that place, but it doesn't necessarily have to. It could be like, you might love planting tomatoes and you're like the best tomato gardener ever. And like that's your happy place. Uh, like me teaching watercolor, like that's my happy
Mm,
place. Or and it kind of has wound up into teaching in general.
mm,
And my midhaven is in Capricorn, which usually is like a very teachery place.
mm,
It's more like structured, um,
mhm.
and it just kind of falls. It's a very like entrepreneurial
Okay,
teacher leader space.
right.
Yours falls in Gemini, and Gemini um, are the twins, and the twins they talk to each other. It's a very chatty space to be in. Um, just as a side note, Geminis always throw the best parties. It's a very social place. So
Mm,
it's quite interesting that your midhaven is in this very social space, um, with all of this like internal work that's going on with all of the other signs.
right.
However, it makes sense though as a teacher.
I,
So when
I
you
was
are,
just. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, when you're in your happy space of sharing information, sharing all of this knowledge that you have as a Virgo, all of the research and data and all of that collection, and you get to disseminate that into the world, that truly is your happy space.
It's so funny because as you're talking about, because I remember you said like the teachery kind of sign or and then that part of the chart. I'm reflecting on when I taught high school for 10
Hmm.
years. Like, despite my physical disposition and appearance, like, yeah, I would like my class time sometimes was just like my planning was like, oh, I'll talk about this, I'll talk about this, and then they're gonna do this activity. And it was so loosey goosey, and it's not the rigid structure. And then especially like before school, after school, my room was like, why are all these children here? And it just turned into like we're gonna hang out. It's like the social, like the social, and it's like that's where the juice was for the part of the job. And then
Yeah.
it's just funny, like because you reflecting on like the earth of the Virgo would be very grounded, which I was, but like when my room was controlled chaos was like the best. And I didn't like freak out about it. I was always like, yeah, this is how I run this thing. And it was always fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and going back to, when we were talking about like your Dungeons and Dragons and the blueprint, and there
Hmm.
is very much there's the ability to loosen up in structure.
Mm,
So I equate it to like when I teach watercolor, and in the very beginning, I only give people two colors and we'll only paint from two colors. But what you can grow from those two colors,
mm, yeah.
it's almost like too many options creates analysis paralysis.
Analysis paralysis. That's what I was thinking about when Jeannie and I play video games, or not video game, board games.
Yeah,
Sometimes there's like, it's great that this game is like, you have so many options. It's like, oh my God, I could do any combination of things. And the sheer number of choices is overwhelming. Yeah.
right. And so especially with a Virgo, read these really heavy Virgo placements, you need to have that structure there, and that's where your creativity can thrive in. And
Mhm.
so being in the teaching space and having that structure for your students, it's where your social ability can thrive in that space too. Because it's like, okay, we've got all the basics down, everybody understands this, and so now we can play in this space, and
Mhm. Yeah. Let's
that's
get
like
let's get crazy.
that's your happy space.
Yeah. Oh man. Especially like after the first 2 or 3 years when I like got teaching kind of like not down, but like I had done enough where like, okay, I can play around a little bit. Then it became like, well, what can we do that's different and weird? Like what kind of like games, simulations, like big scale activities can we do that's not this authoritarian teacher? And that's like when I was like, oh, let's do this kind of huge activity, huge game, huge simulation. And yeah, totally. Like that's where the juice was flowing and it was
And
a lot of
and
fun and I tried to do that.
that's also where all of your signs sitting in that 12th house come into play, because it's dreams. It's like it's the
Mm,
dreamland, it's the imagination. It's being able to sit in the possibility of the what ifs. And so it's where like the video game, like the board games and Dungeons and Dragons and all of those things have this appeal because that's where the 12th house is pulling you into,
Mm.
even though it's still very structured, um,
Mm.
there's so much imagination and depth that's behind that. And that's where you get to like play in that creative space.
I had a reflection or a memory. I remember as a young boy, like when going on some sort of camping trip, and everyone's playing like they would play war or something. It's like,
Mhm.
"Pim pim, I got you," and they're like, "No, you didn't." Like, "Yes, I did," and I would remove myself and be like, "This argument's going to go on forever. This isn't fun and whatever." Like, this needs. I even then I'm like, this needs some rules and structure and like guidelines because this is chaos. Then I discovered role playing games in D&D. I'm like, this is it. This is like the structure that binds it together, but also like the freedom to do whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. My son is like that. My son is he's a Leo, but he has a lot of Virgo placements too. And he was like we would take him to Boy Scouts and he would watch the boys running around.
Interesting.
He would just sit there and look at me like, what am I supposed to do? And I'm like, you're
Yeah.
supposed to go play with them. And he's like, but what are they do? I don't understand
What
what
are
they
they doing? What are the rules? Like, this doesn't.
Yeah.
There's no. Who's
But
in
once
charge? What?
But once Minecraft came into play and he could sit there
Yeah.
in this like creative space, like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how did you build a whole world? Like, I don't even get it.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
it's
cool.
amazing, and I think I said it before. The quote is "total freedom through total control," and I think
Yeah.
that's actually a quote from Steve Vai, the
Mhm.
guitarist. I think like him learning the fretboard, he knew where every note was on every string on every fret, and it's like, why did you do this? And like, I have total control. So now I have freedom to go wherever because I know the rules and I know what rule to break and how that will sound. So it's that
Right.
dichotomy. It's like I know every rule in the book, and I'm gonna break the ones I think I should be broken, and it's gonna be awesome, kind of thing. Yeah.
So utilizing that, keep that actually, this is a really good segue because what I want to do now is I want to talk about how now keep in mind the chart that I wrote for you is really long. Like we could go for another hour, but I'm trying to like get this time. Um, but so keeping that in mind, two things. Well, the last placement that I wanted to talk about on your natal chart is your Chiron. So Chiron is actually not a planet, it's a asteroid. It's like a big old honking asteroid. Um, and it affects a few things. And sometimes you'll hear that'll be one of the genie things where she'll be like, "Ooh, Chiron's moving into blah blah blah." You'd be like, "I don't know what the hell that means." So
You got it, babe. Sure, I trust you. Sure, whatever.
totally.
It
So
sure is, isn't it?
so just like how I had mentioned, your North Node is like your life's journey.
Mm.
Chiron is what they call the wounded healer. So Chiron is the space that we sit in our internal wounds. Um, Something else that will pop up is Lilith, and the Lilith placement is the dark side of the moon. So while Libra sits in your moon sign,
Oh, okay.
your Lilith sits in the opposite. So Chiron and your Lilith both are your shadow work. Um, I know it's deep. And your
This has you need a disclaimer. It's like you will receive some harsh truths whether you want them or not. So
yeah,
just to be aware.
it's it's funny. Um, One of the things I recommend afterwards is to look up the mythology of your signs. Is
Oh.
you will get a lot of information. When I really started to sit with being an Aquarius was when I did the mythology behind it. And the long story short of it is um, the story of Aquarius is this guy was basically a farmer, did some things for the gods. The gods liked him, put him up into the sky, and he became the communicator of the heavens to the people below. So my teaching style tends to come with some very sharp, like, I mean, we're all going to laugh about it, but it's like, it is just what it is. It's like point A, point B, here we go. it's I think that's where my gift of
Mm,
ing comes from, is I get to communicate these things in a very, like, light and playful, not so serious, even though it is kind of serious,
yeah.
way. So your Chiron sits in Taurus. So more deep.
I love that you giggle almost like your Chiron's in Taurus. Don't think I haven't
It's,
noticed. I've caught this a couple times.
there's just so much heavier. It's like so heavy. Um, and I think what's funny for me is that what comes out of all of this is finding the spaces that make you uncomfortable to create action. Um,
Yeah.
which we know change never comes when it's comfortable. And Taurus loves to be comfortable. They're all about, like,
Mm,
cozy blankets. It's all about the home. Um, we want, like, cinnamon muffins, and like, people talk about the sign of Taurus as being about money, and it is, but
mm,
it's not like cash money.
yeah.
It's more like comfort, the material, the home life. And so your Chiron, your core wound is around home life. It can be around, like, just the deep sense of losing all of that.
Mm,
And and because Virgo is so picky and introspective, and all of this sits in that 12th house, um, there's a lot of work around self-worth and basic survival. Um, and how to move around those natural instincts of, clinging on to things versus surrendering and trusting in life's abundance,
yeah.
and how that works for you. This plays out in your regular life through, really embracing, like, transformational work, which you're kind of doing. You're already in the yoga world. You're already in this, like, self-reflective journey, of spirituality and all of those things. So it's part of also why I giggle when I look at your chart, 'cause I'm like, you're so, like, already doing all of these things, um, that it's really beautiful to see, like, how somebody's life path is working.
Mm,
So this is just one of those things, and because it's in Taurus, unfortunately, Taurus is just a very slow-moving sign. So it's not one of those things
right.
that, like, you're aware of it and you process it really fast. This is one of those signs
Mm.
where, like, God, I'm dealing with this cycle again. Like, I thought I did this, and here it is in just a different way. Like, crap. Um, so just know that it's, like, one of those things that's gonna be
Mm,
there. Um, I will say, and I did make a note of it, that this can relate to that Libra sense of fairness.
mm,
So Cancer and the moon also really relates to, um, inner child work,
mm.
specifically through mother wounds. And so
Oof. Okay.
your
What's
Chiron,
it?
your Chiron, that wounded healer presence, this is the space
Mhm.
to kind of reflect on there, and what that might look like. And because it's in Taurus, this is where those things will pop up again and again. Um, so just, and, like, we blame our moms for everything.
I
I
know, right? Like it's like when
know.
you start to do any sort of like self-reflection or like any work like that, because I cheated a couple of days ago. I asked Chat GPT some questions. Like I saw this one TikTok was like, ask Chat GPT these prompts. I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And then they spit this out. I'm like, oh, these are good questions. All right, fine.
Yeah.
So I'm like going through like a list of questions about, like mindset and stuff like that. and it was just all of like, "Ooh, yeah, I gotta unpack that," and, "Oh, that's a really good question," and man,
Yeah.
so I have just been recently digging into that and, like, trying to, like, asking those questions, which I didn't think myself and until I framed it and, like, heard these questions, I'm like, "Oh, this is an interesting inquiry exercise," you know?
Yeah. I will say, if you understand the prompts for ChatGPT, you can get some really cool astrology
I
stuff.
know. Yeah, I asked it a prompt today about something, and then what it spit out, I'm like, "This is dynamite." I'm like, "Oh," I think I asked it to make me as like, based on what I've asked so far, create me like a not a mission statement, but basically like
Mm.
a affirmation statement, you know, and I read it, I'm like, "Oh my god. If I read this every day of my life, I'd be bulletproof. I feel amazing. Like, this is
I
fire."
I know it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
And so actually this is a good transition. This is a good piggyback. So I like to take everything that we talked about and apply it to generally what's going on with the current astrology. So we'll take your natal chart
Mm.
and move it into what's happening right now. And there's so much happening. Like you guys, there's so much. So we're gonna pick one thing, which is the overarching planetary movement that I think just really seals the deal for everything right now is Pluto having moved into Aquarius.
Oh, I've heard of that. I've heard of that.
Yeah.
That's something I've heard about, and that was not that long ago when it actually happened, like this
Yeah.
fall, right? Okay, and
So
then yeah.
Pluto is our farthest little planet and he moves the slowest. So his transits last a really long time.
Like
Um,
200 years-ish, right? Something like that?
um,
Yeah.
and it'll kind of what's been happening for the past 2 years is it because it moves so slow, it'll kind of move into the sign and then it bounces back a little bit. And it takes a while before it like actually settles into that space.
Mm,
Pluto's overarching theme is um, death and rebirth, new beginnings. Um, yeah, I know. It's a lot of change, like it's
mhm,
change. And because it moves so slowly, it's not rapid change. So like when we look at
mm,
what's happening in the country, we see these things happening and it's not going to get fixed anytime soon. Like we just know this. Um,
mm.
and when you look at like historical patterns of where we've had these before, they've not been in great times. And I'm not going to get into details. Everybody can go do a Google.
I
But
taught social studies, I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
great. Um, so Pluto moving into Aquarius, again, we talked about Aquarius earlier. Aquarius revolves around what is what is the best for the collective. Um, it's very socially oriented, but where Gemini, it's like life of the party. For Aquarius, it is very like socially justice minded, um, just really like a lot of caretaking amongst people. Aquarius is also very creative and very scientifically driven. So
Mm,
the use of AI might not be such a bad thing in the Aquarius like mind. It's like, how can
mm,
we use this to help people? How like um just for myself, like you do a lot of computer work. Apps are not foreign to me. Like all of like technology based things, I view them in a very creative way. So it's no surprise that as Pluto, the planet of change, is moving into Aquarius, that all of these things are happening. Um, I think it was like the day that Pluto moved into Aquarius was when Elon bought X.
oh, really?
And like all hell broke loose. And it was like,
Right.
of course, this is like,
Of course,
uh,
right. Everyone that knew the astrology was like, "I'm not surprised that
yeah,
something
we're
like
not
this
surprised. Yep.
happened." Yeah.
Um, so what does this look like for you? So going back to that Mars in Cancer in the
Mm,
11th house, that was where we talked about the crab pulling
Mhm.
inward, the disassociation, the letting things percolate underneath while keeping this very straight face. Um, your ultimate role, especially with this 12th house, and your happy place being in that teaching aspect, is kind of where the journey that you are on now is.
Mm.
Um, moving into healing through the spiritual world for the collective. The work here is, so what is Pluto bringing into change for you? The biggest thing with Virgo is they love, like, your love language is acts of service.
Yeah, I
Love to
know.
like be of service.
It's so
And
much easier for a Virgo to be like, "I did this thing for you," instead of saying, "I love you."
right,
It's I'd rather do 6 hours of physical, not rather, but it was always easier to
easier.
do 6 hours of manual labor than to spend 10 minutes in emotional vulnerability. Like, the 20-year-old me would have chosen the labor every time, like,
Right.
hands down. Yeah.
Yeah. So this acts of service is not, it's not that like it's a bad thing. Again, it's like it's your default space, and just like you said, it's really easy. So how can that be elevated into the collective? Um, so that it's your voice that is being brought to the table, and maybe not out of obligation of service,
Mm,
something that you feel like you have to do versus something that you are creating and manifesting within that space.
mm,
Um, there is still a lot of fire, um, fire and that Gemini, social communication pairs really well with this Aquarius energy of how are we moving and activating the collective. Um, the journey really is finding the fire to activate that, so that you're not behind the scenes necessarily.
mm. Oh my god, it's so funny you say that because Jeannie always says, she's like, "You're Irish. Irish either are police or they run for office, and, like, you've been to college, so run for office." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, this has come up many times. She's like, "Yeah, you should just run for something." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, we'll see." And she's like, "Irish, law enforcement, politics. You got the
I,
gift of gab. Go do it."
I mean, she's a smart lady.
She is.
She's pretty.
She is. She is seldom wrong. God bless her.
uh, I love that idea, actually. I'm not mad at that idea at all. That sounds very in alignment with what your chart is. Now we're just going to be sending like political memes all the time.
Ugh, I'll start writing my first stump speech right now, right after we get off this call.
So, so some things to think about, some self-reflective questions. Um, because this Pluto in Aquarius is really going to strip away any ideas of what you had around what service looked like and what it can look like,
Mm,
um, in the future. And the beautiful thing is that those 12th house placements will allow you to like sit and dream in this space. And so now it's how do we manifest this into action? Um, so something really to ponder, which it sounds like you do already, is am I still acting out of old survival patterns? Or
yeah.
or am I choosing my path as my own authentic self?
Right. That's always, I mean, God, I can go back, like, this reminds me of a conversation I had with my mother at, like, the college fair, like, in high school, and we passed, one college, and it was, like, ophthalmology program, and my mom is like, "Everyone has eyes. They need to be checked. This is a good career path. Everyone's got eyes. Everyone needs their eyes checked." Like, "Yeah, I guess." And, like, one of the images was, like, eye surgery. I'm like, bro, I don't ever want to be responsible for someone's freaking eyeballs. I can't. I mean, maybe I could if I really wanted to, but I'm like, ugh. But it
Right.
was the funny
Yeah.
thing, the message was always like, "Well, this is a good job. This is, this is something in demand and will be needed, and you should do that." I'm like, "Oh, I guess. Okay, whatever." So funny that you said that. Holy cow.
Yeah. So before we wrap it up, do you have any follow-up questions?
Mm.
I know it's like
Follow-up
it's so
questions.
much, and you're gonna wind up later like, oh, I forgot about that. Like,
I know it's like like half an hour later, I'm like, oh, she Ariana said this thing. Um, no, no follow-up questions. I'm just kind of absorbing everything because
yeah.
it's just a reflection. Is just like this is again why I keep turning to things like this, where like so much resonates and makes sense that I can't ignore it or I won't ignore it. I'm like,
Mhm.
this is something like this worth learning about, worth for self-awareness reason only, right? Like if because I think so many times people are just like if they do constant self-reflection, that's great. But like sometimes these little things can give you a peek into the blueprint, like you said, and like having this information, like here's the information, do with it what you will. I mean, I would listen to it because there's so much that resonates and rings true and gives you things to think about and gives you things to work towards and work through.
Well, and
It's
what
just
what's
always
fun too
fascinating.
is now you'll be able to take this information, and when you look at your dosha and you start
Mm,
to analyze your enneagram and all of those things, you can be like, oh, okay, well now
right.
like it's here, this is here, um, and you
Would it
can
surprise you to see? Oh, go ahead.
oh no, and you can also see where your blind spots are.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot more clear of like, oh, okay. Because here's the thing, just as a friendly reminder with astrology, again, it's a blueprint, it's not a mandate. So the
Mm,
goal, like for me, the goal is not, oh, I'm being an Aquarius. It's like, oh, I'm being an Aquarius, so I need to do this.
yeah.
My Aries is showing, so I need to do this. It's not an excuse for behavior, it's a place of growth.
Yeah, I think one of the pitfalls of these like Enneagram astrology, Ayurveda, is be like, well, it's an excuse to act the way I want to act. Like I'm a four, so
Yep.
therefore I can dip into the worst tendencies. Or a
Right.
one. Like I'm a one, which should not surprise you at this point. I'm a one and I'm kapha. Like
Right.
how I don't, you're like, how do you move throughout the day? You just seem like a giant mountain monster who just wants to stand still and like be immovable. Um, but it's like it's good to not just be like to think about it as, well, this is why I am how I am. It's the good self-knowledge is important. And also like, well, like where are the blind spots, I think you said, or like where are
Yeah.
the things that like pitfalls, right? It's like I think we don't often think about those things. We think about like, oh yeah, I'm a Virgo, so I do this and I shall never do anything but what a Virgo does.
Right.
And how can I use that information to change and grow, basically? Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, this is awesome. I loved it. I slash love. I won't say hate, but like I love this stuff, and also like, oh my god, you said so much shit that was just like, oh, you called me out. I was being called out. I should have like kept like a poker face. If I kept a poker face, I wouldn't have been called out as much on Facebook Live. I could have been like, that's interesting. Okay, I'll see how that lands. I don't know. And I'm like, ooh, ee. That one landed. No, but this was awesome. I love this stuff. And yeah,
This
this was great.
this was awesome. Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate you being so open and willing. It's usually hard to find dudes who want to do this and or interested. So I appreciate
Well,
it.
if you find any other modalities outside of astrology that you're diving into, I will be the guinea pig example for the dudes to be like, just put yourself out there and be semi dissected online. Doesn't matter. It's all a learning experience. It's all learning. It's great.
See,
This was awesome.
you're already leaning into the vulnerability of putting it all out there on display. So
I have to try. I'm 45. I got to get there. So why? This is the year I said to Jeannie when I turned 45 in August. I was like, it's the year of yes. I'm going to say yes and just be like, this is happening. I'm going to do it. Is it comfortable? No, but it's the year of yes. I'm going to do it. So this is helping me progress and, go through that. So
so
this was awesome.
politics.
Oh, oh god. Oh my god. We'll see.
So running for office, it's the year of yes.
Oh, oh shit, I did just say that, didn't I? Oh man.
And if Jeannie's off camera somewhere, just like dying.
If she didn't, I can hear her in the next room and she's doing something, so she can't hear that. She could hear it up until 3. So now it's 10 after 3, and yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome. Ariana, this has been wonderful.
So much fun.
Yeah, I think you're amazing at this. Please keep doing it for whoever you interact with this
Thank you.
this practice. This has been awesome. So for
So much for
YFI
having me.
graduate spotlight, Ariana, it's a 10 out of 10, 2 thumbs up. Thank you so much.
Thanks, friend.
Yeah.
Talk to you all soon.
Okay.